Hi guys, welcome to a brand new episode of the Arsenal Way podcast with me, Samrit, of course, my partner in crime, Ashwin. Um, we're about 2 weeks behind schedule. We were supposed to have done one earlier, but due to work and other commitments, we've sort of been on the back foot in terms of putting stuff out for you guys. But we're back. A lot has happened over the last 2 weeks. Thomas Partey has signed for us, adding much needed steel to our midfield. We've lost to City away, which at the end of the day was kind of disappointing, but not unexpected. And of course, we have the Europa League to look forward to. So, Ashwin, great to have you back. And of course, hopefully, you should have a slightly more regular cadence now. But for kicking off, your thoughts on the transfer window, our summer business, our well, not I would say summer business in its entirety, but the new players that we've been bringing in over the last few months, going all the way back to December.
In the interest of time, I'm going to try keeping this short and sweet. I think our summer business was fantastic. We've added some much needed steel, like you mentioned. Gabriel seems to be so far he seems amazing. The one game that he didn't play against Liverpool, there were question marks about why we didn't play him because he looks phenomenal. Even against the game at City, there was this one piece of defending where Aguero had the ball and you saw him falling down and he was tracking back and he's falling down and even on his knees he managed to crawl on his knees and still defend the ball and keep it from getting to the keeper. So that was one good thing. You spoke about buying Thomas Partey. It's genuinely been a great window for us because we've actually gone out and signed the players that we've required. We've actually, there's so many times where we've gone out in windows and we're like, we need a player to plug in this hole. We need a player to plug in this hole, but we end up going and signing 3 attacking midfielders, right? That's happened under Wenger so many times. And, we don't usually get the players that we want. And you can see that Arteta is trying to build a spine. What was the thing was that I get the whole thing about waiting till the last for Thomas Partey's you can see it two ways. You could see that it was great business done on the last day, but you could also get upset saying that if you had to pay the release clause, why didn't we pay it at the start of the window? Bed him in so that he would be ready for games like Man City and Liverpool. You wouldn't have to bring him on with 8 minutes to go. But nevertheless, we can build for the future. And one big signing for us was obviously getting Aubameyang to re-sign his contract and extend his deal with us, because that shows you that he's building the spine with you keeping a big name like Oba. Also the signing of Saka is very important. Saka and Martinelli are two young players for the future who we've re-signed again, extended their deals, which is very, very important. And obviously the signing of Gabriel and Thomas Partey will make us more competitive. You've seen how unpredictable the league has been. If Aston Villa play their 5th game and win that, they'll be top of the league. They're currently second, 1 point behind Everton. Both are unbeaten. Aston Villa shipping 7 past Liverpool, Spurs shipping 6 past United. You'd never guess these things. And like Spurs shipping 3 goals themselves in the space of 10 minutes again. So yeah, it's been a topsy-turvy league, start to the league. It's something that we should see and take that chance and use that as an opportunity to, not only fight for top 4, but be the dark horse for the title. I'm not saying that we can win the title. I'm just saying we could be the dark horse. But again, our target should be top 4. We should be able to make it. We've recruited well. We've added well to the team. Team's playing well. And before I get into the City analysis, I want to basically throw this question to you. It's been about 4 days since the City, 4 days since the City defeat, and I've seen it in 2 ways, right? A lot of people on the internet are talking about it, saying that it was a team without Kevin De Bruyne. It was a team where Raheem Sterling was half fit. It was a team where Sergio Aguero's come back after 4 months. It's not the strongest City team. They conceded goals against teams like Leeds, and they lost. They shipped 5 goals to Leicester. It was a team that, if you really went at them, you could have got something from that game, and we were a bit defensive. So I've seen a lot of people being upset that we didn't go at City. And then to the other side, I've seen a lot of people talking about how when we've gone to City in the past, we've shipped 3 goals on an average every time we've gone there. This time, we were more competitive. We kept the game to 1-0, and we kept City down to, in the second half, we didn't let City have a lot of shots on goal. I think it ended with City having 11 shots on goal and we having about 10 shots on goal, which is the most we've had there in a while as well, with us not taking our chances. So I've seen that there are two different sets of people talking about, yes, we could have won this game, and yes, they're very happy with the result. So I just want to ask you, where do you stand on it before I give you my sort of whole take on the City game?
No pressure answering this question. Um, I get why people, the first set of fans have said why they think that this was a weakened team and they were there for the taking. I understand that because a much stronger team lost to Leicester. Leeds also, I think Leeds beat them as well, or they
I
drew
think they
with them.
drew them.
Yeah. So and that had a team that had Kevin De Bruyne, who was pretty much their main playmaker and the person who the team revolves around. Um, I get that, and I personally was also quite frustrated with how we were playing because as solid as we looked at the back, and let's face it, the goal that we conceded was off came off of Leno and wasn't really didn't really cause problems as such about just being completely left open as we have in the past there. It was more of a save that should have ideally fallen to a second man or an Arsenal player who was more aware of what was happening around him. But I mean, it happened. Like these sort of things happen at any club, let alone City. Could we have done better for the goal? Yes. Do I think uh, we should have gone there and won? No, I think that's a bridge too far. Do I think that we could have done like I remember parts of the game when we actually went at City, we were causing them problems. From about I think the 32nd, 33rd minute, we just suddenly seemed to switch gears and were going at them. Second half as well, we were causing them problems. So I think we're sorted in terms of how we need to play. I just don't see us. I still see a similar pattern in terms of our attacking output. It's still the same counter-attacking football. It's still the same long ball over the head to a runner like an Oba um, or a Pepe. I didn't understand Willian playing false nine, number 10, that hybrid role. I didn't understand that at all. Um, and I don't know about you, but this outside of the Willian, whatever role that you want to call him at, I don't see us having any other plan B when it comes to our attacking output. And maybe we sort that out. Maybe he's trying to build Willian into that role, because there's nothing there in the top half. I mean, you would argue that the likes of an Oba or a Pepe up front should have more in there, more enough and more in the locker. And even a player like Willian, who's been there, done that, should have more in their locker. But it doesn't seem to be clicking. We've scored what 8 goals in 5 games, conceded 6. So we're +1. A goal a game is what we're conceding. I mean, even though you could say that we conceded 3 at Liverpool, we're conceding 3 goals a game. Sorry, 1 goal a game. Um, so there are issues there. There are merits to both sides. I don't think we have it in us to go and win at City right now. I think that's still a bridge too far, even by our standards, um, to go and actually win. I think the best result we could have hoped for was a draw. But seeing that our attacking output is just not clicking at this point, I think I'm not too disappointed. Yeah, I mean, a loss is a loss. I don't buy whether we get slapped 3-0 or we lose 1-0. It's a loss at the end of the day. Losing is losing. It's how we lose. If we had gone down fighting and had made clear cut chances that we just couldn't convert, I would have been more disappointed. But for me, it was more of okay, it's fine whether I lose 3-0, whether I lose 1-0. It doesn't really matter at this point.
To be fair, we did have clear-cut chances. I clearly remember the chance in the second half when Oba crossed the ball and Pepe headed it straight to uh,
The
keeper.
keeper, yeah,
And
yeah,
even the
yeah,
Oba
yeah.
chance, I know the chances have been very, very few for him this season, but he had that one chance. And if he had taken that chance, even though he was observed, I mean, he was judged as offside. But if you're taking the chance, clearly on the TV replays, it showed that he wasn't offside. He would probably be in
I
level
think
there.
you're right. Now that you mentioned it, I think even Saka had a chance,
Yeah,
right? Just
Saka.
before
Yeah,
the Auba chance. Yeah, yeah,
yes,
you're right.
Saka.
You're right.
So the thing is, there were a couple of things that that really upset me during the game. I'm basically standing for. I understand that Mikel wants to make things more defensive, but you have to understand that he needs to find a balance, and he needs to find a balance soon, because at the moment we've created only 6 chances for Aubameyang. In 5 games that we played, we created 6 chances for Aubameyang. He was our top scorer last season. Um, we are the second lowest chances. I mean, the second lowest team in the league who've created chances attacking wise. So he really needs to readdress that balance, because Auba was anonymous. And when the lineups came out, when you saw Willian, Pepe, and Aubameyang, all of us were like, yes, he's finally playing Aubameyang through the middle. And then he starts the game off with Willian being in the number of the false nine position. And to me, to be honest, Willian didn't get the ball. He didn't see the ball that game. So you're basically essentially wasting 2 players. I'm not saying he's wasting Auba, but because the service has been so poor right now, and there's been nothing our midfield is offering him, that he's being wasted on the left, and Willian's been wasted in the 10 role. So you rather, I don't even know why, when he's seeing that through the game, why he didn't even try to switch it once. Even late on, when Lacazette came on, there was no intent to go. I think he was just happy to defend and to maybe nick it through a set piece, or just get a goal and take it there. See, I get it. You might set up like this for a cup game, in a one-off cup game, and you might win it. But over a league, you're not going to be able to get away with results like this on a consistent basis, right? Another thing, I understand that Thomas Partey has had 1.5 training session, but you have to realize that he's match fit. He's been playing for Atletico Madrid. He just played for his international team. You could have at least given him 25, 30 minutes, right? Getting him on for 8 minutes where he can do nothing. And I know he's not going to be that superstar player who's going to come in and everything's going to change automatically. We're not. He's not going to come and create like 20 chances or whatever, or stop goals or whatever. But he could have had a little more impact. I felt that Dani Ceballos didn't have the strongest game, even though he was
In
tidy on the
fact,
ball.
in fact, in fact, when Partey came on those 8 minutes itself, suddenly you saw a drive from the midfield, which we've not had for
Exactly.
the longest time.
Exactly, and it was the last 8-9 minutes is when
Yeah,
that we started. We were trying to take our chances, and I don't know. I don't know why we left it to so late. Because see, I get what Mikel is trying to do, and he said it very clearly in his interview. He's like, when the last 4-5 years, when I've seen Arsenal come to a place like City, I've seen the game being over in the first half, and he's right. In the first 20-25 minutes is where City go 3-4 goals up, and the game's dead. It's done. And I know where he's getting at. And even the goal that, like you mentioned it, that led to their goal was a mistake on our part. And you can clearly understand how switching off for a second can be so, can cause your team a goal, and you can concede in
in fact, if now if I think about it, the first 20 minutes in of last season before Luis got sent off, we were pretty decent actually at
yeah.
City. We held our own before it all went
Yeah.
down the drain after Luis got sent off. But no, but I see that. My
See,
just
that
concern
game you
is
have to
that,
also understand that
yeah,
both Luis, I mean, no, Pablo Mari and Granit Xhaka got injured, right?
yeah,
So
that's
we
true.
were, and then we got sent off. We got sent. We got a man. We were down a man, and we were playing with 10 men. So playing with City with 10 men is not going to work. Plus, you've got two influential people out of the team. So you can say, okay, fine, mistakes were made in that game, and you move on. You learn from that. I was upset about the fact that if you in the league, if you don't take your chances, or if you're
Yeah.
not going to, you're never going to succeed. This might be enough to get us maybe top 4, top 5, but if we have to go and say that, okay, everybody around us is crumbling, this could be the opportunity for us to go and probably try winning the league. You've got to take those chances. You've got to be
Yeah,
fearless.
this actually you're right, and you made a very interesting point earlier around us being dark horses. Um, and of course, in hindsight, of course, things seem a lot more clearer. The way Liverpool got turned over by Villa, um, it just seems to me that we don't have. I don't know if we have a game plan or not, but there seems to be a hesitancy on the part of Mikel to go for it. Like Leeds visit Liverpool, they scored 3. Villa scored 7 against Liverpool at home. I don't think I've seen an Arsenal team put more than 3 goals past anyone for a little while now. that there's a sense of fluency that is missing. And I get it that this is still his first year. He's not even completed a year. It's only been 9 months since he's been in the team. But surely there has to be a lot more than just depending on your fullbacks to lob the ball over to your fastest sprinter.
No, see,
Um,
don't get me wrong. I'm not Mikel
yeah,
out, or I'm not blaming him for anything. I
yeah,
love
yeah.
what he's doing at the club. But if you watch the post match, I think Tony Adams was there in the studio and he spoke about it very clearly. He said, at some point you have to move away from the three at the back and move to the four, because that's
For
the
the
only
back, yeah,
way.
you're
Yeah,
right. You're
that's
right.
the only way you're going to address that, and then you're going to create more chances for your attackers. And he's like, hopefully now that you've got Partey, you can do that. And I'm hoping he does that, because I just feel that Mikel's probably stuck in a position right now, because if you clearly remember, before COVID hit us, Mikel came, we only played 4-4-2. I mean 4-3-3. We didn't play with the five at the back at all. It was only after the after the whole COVID situation that he went five at the back and he stuck to that. So maybe he's got that in his mind, saying that if we move to a four, we might not be strong, stable defensively. But
Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, it's be interesting to see how they line up against Rapid Vienna on Thursday, and just I mean, this gives us a good segue into that game as well. Do you think that he, um, like, I'm not really concerned about the back four as much. I'm like, for me, the midfield now becomes a more interesting place to figure out, like, for us to figure out the jigsaw puzzle there, because does he now play with Partey plays for sure? I
yes,
think that's a given.
I think 60,
Uh,
65 minutes he gets definitely.
do you see who are the other players who you see now start? I mean, I'm just not talking about just the Vienna game. I think just moving forward as well. I think Partey will definitely now start every game. But who are the other two? Is it a toss up between Ceballos and Saka, or for you will it remain Saka? Sorry, will it remain Partey, Xhaka, and Ceballos, and Saka starts playing out left wide as and when?
See, I'm pretty sure he's going to want to try out Partey and Shaka in midfield, that combination. So I don't know if he's going to actually give Shaka a run in, because we've got in a couple of days we've got a game against Leicester again at home, and then United after that. So either he gives Shaka a rest completely and plays El Neni and Partey, or he tries the 4-3-3, pushes maybe Partey, Ceballos, and maybe like an El Neni over there to see what he can do or try, because he's going to have to do it at some point. And I feel he has to give Partey about 65 minutes or 70 minutes to understand, get that rhythm, so that he can throw him in against Leicester. It's at the Emirates. Leicester have just
Yeah, no reason not to start Partey.
yeah, exactly. So you give him that game. I know games like this, maybe he probably bring in like a Joe Willock, maybe like a Emil Smith Rowe might play. I think he'd probably have to give Oba a rest. Oba's not going through a great patch, but obviously the team's not creating enough for him to go through that patch. So it all comes down to how the team is set up. Um, I'm hoping with Rob Holding's injury right now, with like, because he's out for 3 or 4 weeks, we probably give William Saliba a game, since we didn't send him out on loan. Maybe we can give him a game, uh, because otherwise, I don't think he'd want to risk playing Gabriel or Luis again. He could. I
Is
think
Mustafi
Mustafi.
back? I think
Yeah,
Mustafi's
Mustafi's
back, right?
Mustafi's back in training, so probably be Mustafi, and might give William Saliba a game with maybe like Kolasinac playing third centre back if you're playing three centre backs or something like that. But he's gonna ring in the changes for sure, and he definitely should, because this is the group stages of the Europa League, and and as
I mean,
a
it's a
B
pretty
side,
straightforward group as
yeah,
well. I mean, I don't think we have any problem. We should have
our,
any problems going through.
our B side should be good enough to go there and put in a shift and beat these guys. Um, Plus, with the way the schedule is this year, with the amount of international games as well, with the Carabao Cup, the Premier League, the FA Cup going to be coming in Jan, it becomes very important that you can give your main guys a rest. Maybe because obviously Lacazette didn't start, so I feel Lacazette's going to start as well. What's really disappointing again is, I know you mean spoken about this a lot. We spoke about Özil not making the Europa League squad. Today, I think there's confirmation from ESPN
He's
saying that
not made the Premier League squad
he's
either.
not
Yeah.
made the Premier League squad as well. So that's Ozil till January. He's not going to play for us. Probably could be his last game that he's ever played for us, which is extremely sad, because he was one of my favorite players. And it's something that I think Per Mertesacker came out yesterday in an interview where
It's not football related. Yeah.
it's not football related, which is what I think you and me have spoken about, saying that what,
Yeah.
it has to be deeper than that, because there was another if it was football related, you would, like, you see these training pictures, these training videos, and Ozil's part of it, and he's laughing, he's smiling, There was this one video where he went and he gave a fist bump to Arteta. So you could see that it's fine between the two of them. It's maybe that, and it's sad that that the board has made is probably tying Arteta's hands from playing Ozil, because having him where we're struggling creatively right now. If you're telling me Willian dropped a 2 out of 10 performance in that game, you're telling me Ozil wouldn't have done better playing that position?
I mean, an Ozil 2-1. I mean, okay. Again, this is just with the benefit of hindsight. I'm pretty sure an Ozil 2-1-10 would have far exceeded what a Willian 2-1-10 would be.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
some of the like through our games, I'm talking about even like towards the end of last season, there were some passes where you could see like our strikers making these runs and some of our midfielders failing to make these passes, and you'd be like Ozil would make those passes with his eyes shut, because that's like bread and butter for him. And for us to not use a person who's in his prime, like 31, he's only 31, and to use him, it's a sad. I mean, look at what James Rodriguez is doing. Everyone said he's the luxury Ozil type of player. Look at Everton. Everton are top of the league. They've gone and put two strong defensive midfielders. Alan's come in and Doucouré's come in behind him. And just look at the way James is doing. He's got a goal and assist in probably every game that has happened so far for Everton.
Yeah.
Dominic Calvert-Lewin has got 8 goals in the Premier League in 5 games. Aubameyang has 1. Son has like 7 or 8. Like, what are we going to do?
Yeah. No, I get that. I get that. I just, I mean, it's baffling. It's not. I mean, I remember when Ozil first signed, I was super kicked. I remember when he signed, it was the international break immediately after that, and I literally counted the hours to see him on away to Sunderland when he first came.
It took him 13 minutes to get his first assist.
30 minutes first assist for Giroud. That season when he had 19 assists, and he probably would have broken the record if it wasn't for Giroud being a donkey in front of goal. Cost us the league, pretty much, that guy. Yeah, it sucks. It's a sad end to a player who's been fabulous for us. It's not his fault that he was given the contract that he's on. But for
it was bad management.
I mean, he hasn't helped his case also. Let's be fair, with PR that could have been avoided. But I guess it is what it is. We live. You live by the sword, you die by it. I just hope we have, like I've always maintained, we have a plan B. Be it for not only Ozil, anyone for that matter. When I said this umpteen times, we need to have a plan B on how we deal with things. I'm not seeing any evidence of that. Maybe Awa was that guy who we needed. Maybe go back in for him. Maybe go back in for someone, because this team is crying out for some form of creativity in the middle. If we somehow manage to make our way into the top 4 come May next year, April next year, I don't know, however long the season goes on for, that is an area that needs addressing now, because our spine is pretty much sorted. It's just that one piece of the puzzle that needs.
No, but I think even before we sign that player, I think he's going to have to find a formation that finds that balance. Whether he sticks with
that plays to everyone's strength, or if not everyone's strength, at least the main players that plays to Auba's strength, that plays to Pepe's strength. You would hope that the likes of a Partey can do some of it, not all of it, or help these other players perform as much as they should, or as well as they can. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out. Before we wind up, of course, we digress from the Vienna game. Your predictions for your lineup and predictions for the game day after.
So I think he'll bring in the changes for sure. I hope we can probably start Alex Runnison, because I know Bernd Leno's come in. He's come in after a break because he was injured for a couple of months as well. So it's not like he's exhausted or anything. But it's just that I don't want Bernd Leno picking up injuries in games like these where it can be avoided. So I hope for that sake that he brings in Runnison, but I don't see that happening. I think Leno will start. At the back, I'm looking forward to seeing Saliba. I hope he gets some game time. I know he's gone through a tough period. He's just lost his mother, and he's a young kid at 18, come from France. Needs to, I mean, new language, new teammates, new everything, new environment around him. So it's tough. I don't know if he gets a start, but with Holding's injury, he surely gets that opportunity. I think Mustafi is back as well, so he gets that opportunity to come in as well. Um, I think the switch to either he might try the 4-4-3-3, but if it doesn't work out, I think it'll move between a 4-3-3 and a five at the back. So um, probably have Kolasinac over there when we're attacking. It probably he'd probably be the left back, but if he's when we're defending, it probably be the left center back. Um, Either play Ainsley or Saka.
I'd completely forgotten Kolasinac still at the club though.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
FYI.
You still have these guys. So Kolasinac is there. I think Ainsley plays left wing back, and I think Cedric Suarez comes in at right wing back. Sorry. Midfield, no doubt, you have to have Thomas Partey starting. You've got to give him some game time. You've got to get him to adjust. So maybe 60, 65 minutes there. Him with I think he'll try Danny Ceballos, or he'll to see how the two of them pair up. So that's there. With probably Saka up front, Saka on the left, Lacazette, and probably either Reece Nelson or one of Eddie or Pepe getting a goal. So it's probably going to be that. Um, just before I go into the predictions and what the final score will be, what do you think the lineup will be?
No, I think it's similar. I have a pretty similar thought. I think it will probably will be second string. I do see the likes of Nketiah, Nelson getting some game time. Um, Completely agree with Cedric and Ainsley getting some game time. I just don't know if Saliba will play though. I think there was some talk of him not being completely ready, but maybe because it's an away game. It's the first game of the Europa League. I'm not sure if they'll want to take that chance. I still think it will probably be
The home game next weekend.
yeah, it will probably be the home game that he'd probably get to play. But Partey definitely starting. I'd like to see Joe Willock do a lot more. I think he'd been someone who could have maybe gone out on loan, because he's definitely a confidence player, and I don't think that's there at this point. But no, I think it'll be strong enough to get a result there. I don't see us not getting a result at Rapid Vienna, unless of course we completely mess up and then we're running behind the 8 ball. But I think we should be okay day after.
Scoreline?
We will concede. I think we'll score. I think we'll score 2 wins. I think we'll win by a couple. So 3-1.
3-1. I'll go with the 2-1. So victories for both of us. Yeah. So guys, that's been the podcast. Thanks, Samrit, for joining us, and I mean, not joining us, but thanks for everything. And see you guys next week. We'll probably we'll do a preview before the Leicester game, which is on Sunday, late night for us again. With the clocks moving 1 hour behind, gets worse for us to start. So we'll preview that game, and then we have a tough week after that. I think we follow that with United the weekend after that, and then
the Thursday Sunday schedule is back
Sunday,
now.
yeah, and then we have probably Leicester after. Leeds after that as well. So it's going to be a tough run for us. We need to pick up points, and we need to pick them up fast. So thanks, guys. It's been good having this podcast. It's been a while, but yeah, we'll see you guys soon. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.